Here's an idea. Cosplay is a form of theater. It is that time of year again. Open fire hydrants, beautiful sunny days at the park or the beach, ice cream for days, and Comic-Cons. Comic books, lines, getting to meet your favorite artists, fun and interesting panels.
I am Loki.
More lines, maybe getting to see Nathan Fillion. That's fun. All crammed into a massive building with upwards of 100,000 fans, many of whom will be dressed in 100% rad cosplay. Cosplayers buy or construct the garb of their favorite fictional characters, and come heat nor weight nor unwieldy prop, they don it in a dense but excited crowd to celebrate that character. Not every cosplayer, but a fair amount also perform their character, adopting their mannerisms, affect, or attitude. Deadpool is probably the most well-known example of a character that comes with a personality when someone dons his threads. This makes the goal of cosplay several-fold: to celebrate a character, to make something awesome, to look and feel awesome yourself, and for some people to sort of just become someone else. Someone powerful or heroic or complicated or heinous or just not you.
I'm not even gonna question it, man. I'm just gonna let you do your thing.
Or to express yourself in a way that you might not normally. Maybe it's a boost of confidence or a simple change of pace. But like, for real, if I'm cosplaying as Loki or America Chavez, you better believe there is a feeling of being pretty in charge that comes along with that. And if I'm at a con, there's a set of situational norms that would justify me behaving as though I am America Chavez. Anyway, it's this performance and other aspects of it that lead me to ask if the group of people cosplaying at a con can be considered collectively theater. I mean, classically at least, the resemblance is pretty far off. There's no script or action, there's no director or production team as such, there's no real stage or audience, and you could argue that there aren't even actors.
Acting. Good night.
And if we're calling cosplay theater, are we then on some slippery slope towards calling Halloween theater or SantaCon? What is the world coming to?
Oh, come on!
Cosplayers might create spectacle, they might be performing, but we don't call dance, busking, or stand-up comedy theater. Cosplay might be a form of performance art, but really at this point, in a post-James Franco, Joaquin Phoenix world, the genre of performance art is so broad that it is essentially meaningless.
Two people sharing the bucket.
So if we're gonna stick to the theater route, let's work from the ground up. Theater is, roughly speaking, a group of people working in concert to present an intentional experience to an audience in a place. So we have a group of people in a place, they're the cosplayers, and I think it's fair to say that we have an audience, at least of some kind. But theater is, like we said, a necessarily collaborative art form. Are those cosplayers working together? Are they collaborating? In some situations, especially where friends have a themed cosplay group, the answer is clearly yes. But if we're talking about all of the cosplayers at one con, are they all working together? I still think the answer is yes. They're not working on one agreed upon script or central performance, no. But they are working together to bring various fictional universes into our significantly less fictional universe. Of course, it is worth pointing out, especially given what I'm sure is the occasionally less than positive experience of being a female cosplayer, that cosplayers are not around simply for the amusement of others. In a way that there is respect between performer and audience in most situations, I think it's fair to say that that should also exist between cosplayers and general con-goers. Cosplayers may not intend to create theater, but they do intend, I think, to bring something to life. And if they're doing it at a con, it's in a situation with norms and an understanding about why there is a dude dressed like a giant robot roaming the expo floor. At a con, that is totally normal, even expected. You would be confused if that wasn't happening. Meaning the collaboration between all cosplayers at any given con might not be intended or explicit, like people working together on a theater production in a theater, but that doesn't mean that it's not emergent and that its effects aren't palpable. The biggest challenge you could offer, I think, is that there's no stage. But I mean, hey, isn't all the world
All the world's a stage.
a stage?
All the world's a stage.
No, but for real, theater hasn't needed a stage in quite a while, actually. Theater can happen in homes and warehouses, in the park, on a train, it can happen around town, in the marketplace. Theater can happen anywhere, especially if you don't care about securing the necessary permits. Theater has gone from mimesis to in-your-face-sis. Not gonna lie, I laughed at my own joke when I wrote that down. And on that note, cosplay actually has a lot in common, I think, with something called guerrilla theater, which, though it was first theorized by mimes, is still cool. Promise. Mimes don't
Kill him!
deserve the bad rap they get.
Now wait!
Most of them.
You know, a mime is a terrible thing to waste.
R.G. Davis of the SF Mime Troupe first wrote about guerrilla theater in 1966, and he described its aims as, roughly speaking, the following: to go out and find audiences, not expect them to find you, to create theater which was politically and socially conscious, and to make it with, quote, people, not actors. Davis recommended starting guerrilla art troupes on the foundations of Commedia dell'arte because of its use of masks, bright colors, and, quote, gags. He suggested that people use the practices and material developed by commercial theater and media to help guerrilla art achieve its goals. Is any of this ringing a bell? Those goals are to unhem the performer and to teach the audience something, to, quote, gather and excite audiences into being provoked and confronted. Davis was talking about high political and social causes, but what about cosplayers? What are they teaching? What are they provoking and confronting? Well, the easy answer, I think, is that they're challenging the idea of who, in fact, brings a character to life. Is it the creators or is it the audience? But in the true guerrilla theater sense of, quote, directing change towards the system, cosplayers' interpretations of characters show the system of media how fans view and interpret their work and characters, what's exciting or important or lacking. It's true that lots of it does reinforce the system. Lots of Attack on Titan Survey Corps cosplay, well, that's popular. Let's make more of those. But there's also cosplay as comment or critique. People who reimagine the look or history of the character they're cosplaying, who rethink their attitude or affect. Cosplayers who change a character's race or gender or other thought to be fundamental characteristics. The critique here isn't always active. I'm not saying that if a black woman cosplays as Sailor Moon or a dude as Lady Satsuki that they necessarily have an agenda other than to have fun, but rather, agenda or not, their versions of those characters necessarily raise questions about how and why characters are written and drawn the way they are, what is and is not acceptable in fan culture, and what the bounds of cosplaying are. This type of cosplay, just like guerrilla theater, asks questions and provokes the various systems in which it exists or comments on, not the least of which is the system of epoxy holding everything together. Lots of provoking there, endless challenges to that system. What do you guys think? Is cosplay a form of theater? Is it guerrilla theater? Let us know in the comments, and if you subscribe, maybe I'll feel motivated to finally put together my America Chavez cosplay. Where am I gonna buy those shorts? I really wish there were a better global situation in which we could be responding to these comments, but unfortunately that's not the case. Let's see what you guys had to say about sports replacing war. Scott Mitchell makes a really astute observation and points out that while sports can be organized on the nation-state level, generally war is not, that there are third parties who do not represent entire nations, are representative of nations that do not or have not existed, and that is a very big roadblock, let's call it, to the eventuality of sports replacing warfare. Yeah, it's a really good point. There were 3 pieces of media that came up in the comments a lot that people felt were huge oversights that we didn't mention. Joshua Haverman pointed out that we didn't make any reference to Robot Jox, which I've never even heard of it, so I'm gonna go watch this. Novataros and a bunch of other people pointed out that I essentially described the premise of G Gundam, which I knew about but have never seen, so now I have a very good reason to go and watch that. And finally, Magnum Force 51 and a couple other people pointed out that the anime No Game, No Life is a possible instance of a situation where sports or games, as the case is, can replace war. I watched some of No Game, No Life, and it seems to me the premise is that there is a kind of deity that actually physically prevents people from harming one another, right? There are still rules, and you cannot get to that, like, ultimate sacrifice of threatening someone with bodily harm because the universe actually prevents that. So, right, we're never gonna have that situation here. Luchinaris says that this will be a moot point when we have robots fighting for us, and I don't know, maybe this is just me being really cynical, but I can't see, like, if there are two nations that are fighting one another on the field of battle and one decimates the other's robot forces, but the one with the decimated robot forces still has, like, bombs and planes and stuff, and the stakes are really, really high, what's gonna stop them from going for the human beings controlling the robots on the other side? Like, that seems like something that would happen, that we wouldn't respect the outcome of the death of robots, that is, unless we start to have extreme moral concern for our robots. Didn't someone talk about this recently? Excalibur Owen brings up World Cup riots, which, yeah, is kind of the ultimate rebuttal to this, that when things do not go the way that people want them to in a sports match, and sometimes even when they do go the way that people want them to, physical violence is still a result. So not a hope-inducing thing. Really, we're not a hopeful group at all in this comment response section. Allison Ryan asks whether or not it would be possible, if we're not able to replace war with a game, if we can replace an element of war, specifically if we can signify death instead of actually create it. And I wonder if this thing, like this idea, is the very difference between, right, like war and game. As soon as you start signifying the things, instead of actually engaging with them, you move from capital W war to, like, war games, like war sports. M. Rowan Meyer gets on a similar idea and points out that in order for this kind of thing to happen, there would have to be something like an Uber Geneva Convention, and that, you know, you could implicate arms manufacturers in this, that they could change their products, but yeah, is that ever gonna happen? ... A billion question marks. Kearney McClellan makes a really great point and says that many times when a nation is engaging in war, they are attempting to destroy or expend the resources of their opponent, and that insofar as that is a major strategy or factor of war, no sport will ever actually be able to destroy resources in the same way. And so because of that, the two will never be interchangeable. It's a really great comment. Links to this one and all the others in the doobly-doo. Maybe we can have a friendly game of sports to settle this bet. I know it's football, I know. This week's episode was brought to you by the hard work of these very peaceful individuals. We have a Facebook, an IRC, and a subreddit. Links in the doobly-doo, and the tweet of the week comes from Mr. Joe Hansen, who pointed me towards a funny poem about Slavoj Žižek's hairdo, amongst many other things. I laughed, but, you know, it's Žižek, so you kinda have to.